So today we're going to talk about writing with the ancestors, and which is an amazing process, a phenomenological process, and expands everything for your book, your life, for your writing. We're going to talk about it, though, how you can bring writing with the ancestors as a practice into your book. So, first of all, I want you to think about, particularly if you've been struggling with this, what if you didn't have to write your book alone? What if those who came before you could be grandparents, great-grandparents, or even further back, particularly sometimes when people struggle with the difficult dead or unhealed intergenerational trauma, even if you have to go way back to the ancient ancestors whose names you don't even know, what if they were available to you as you wrote, not just as a metaphor, but as a living practice? So today I want to get into introducing you to something that I call writing with the ancestors. It sort of just came to me in 2020 during the pandemic as a community gathering space that I created for people, but it goes way beyond that. I have been doing ancestral constellation healing work for 15 years, and that is what opened the door. But I want to support you today in opening to how it might unlock something in your book, specifically that you have been circling around and around with for a long time. So I want to say about writing with the ancestors, it is a somatic practice, it's a contemplative practice that intentionally invites the presence, memory, and wisdom of those who came before you directly into your creative process. It's not about quote unquote sort of channeling in a mystical or new age sense, though for some writers it can feel that way. It is about acknowledging that you are not the only one who is invested or has something to say about the stories you write. Your ancestors lived versions of these stories first, and these stories and these themes circle around and round in our various lineages. And this is not only about bringing in their support, it's about the stories you choose to write being healing stories for, as well as offerings for you, your reader, and your ancestors. And this practice is rooted really in indigenous and African indigenous cultures and many other ancestral wisdom traditions that have always understood storytelling as a communal, intergenerational act, not a solitary one, right? And you don't have to hold any specific spiritual belief to use this practice. You have to really be willing to listen to your body, the land, and the spirits of the ancestors that pass through the body that you can tune into again somatically. So, how it actually works, a very simple practice here that you can try today. One, and this is something I work with all my students and clients on, create a writing altar. This does not have to be elaborate. This can be a very small space. This can be a photograph of someone who came before you and an object that belonged to them. Light a candle, even just writing their name on a piece of paper and folding it, up and putting it on the altar, or putting it on the altar with a candle on top of it. This physical gesture signals something to, first of all, your own nervous system. Oh, an out breath. I am not alone here. I am not alone in writing this. Step number two, you can open, if it feels right to you, with an invocation. Something again I do over and over. Just start by taking 3 deep breaths, and speaking something very simple. I open to the writing. I open my writing, I should say, to the wisdom of those who came before me. I welcome what needs to come through, right? And you're setting an intention here. Also, something I do over and over with people, you can try this instead, is just a breath into your heart, calling in the ancestral heart, tuning in with the ancestral belly or the ancestral gut, the seat of your intuition, calling in the ancestral gut. And lastly, tuning into the soles of your feet, connecting with the land, connecting with all your ancestors, those who came before you, human and not human, and breathing that energy in through the soles of your feet. Step number 3, you can try, and this is at the heart of writing with the ancestors practice. And I don't want to get into a big thing here on this YouTube video, but I do want to say your ancestors are not just bloodlines. They're not just adoption lines, if you have that, or foster lines. Your ancestors are also connected to the land itself. You have collective ancestors, like in the mighty dead, who are often writers, artists, healers, who have done so much in their lifetime, and they're often well known. These are often famous writers, artists, whatnot, activists whose lives became so devoted and they manifested so fully their purpose, they become ancestors for us all. So ancestors, doesn't mean just personal ones. So you can write a letter to an ancestor, and what I suggest you do is first close your eyes and call in who wants to work with you today? Who wants to support you in your writing? And when you get a sense of who they are, asking a question or a series of questions you wish you could ask them, and writing back from the voice of an ancestor, allowing them to speak through you. This is an incredibly powerful way to access parts of your family story that aren't yours, maybe to claim directly or that you even know directly, but that live in you nonetheless. And step 4 of this, notice what arrives for you. After your session, sit quietly for a moment before you close the energy. And I want you to jot this down. What came up that surprised you? What feels true even though you can't explain why? And just jot those observations down. They're often the most important material. And many writers find this practice helps them access emotional truth that they've been avoiding, or gives voices to those in their story who can't speak for themselves. So it's a way of really expanding the story and the perspectives in them. And I want to just put out here, um, before I jump into how it helps your book, just a note that I offer free circles, generally about once a month, and part of our practice is writing with the ancestors. So check out or sign up for my website if that sounds like something you'd like to be notified about often. So, jumping into this last part, how writing with the ancestors helps your book, right? How does it actually support you write? So, first of all, it breaks through a profound kind of isolation, not just the isolation of being around other humans, but the isolation if you feel estranged or isolated from your ancestral line. Writing a book, particularly if it's a memoir, or it relates to some of your family history, including difficult history, your own or others, it can feel really like carrying the weight of the world alone, right? And that slows us down or can grind us to a halt. So this practice reminds you are part of many lineages, and then in the different threads and lines of your people that have been telling this story much longer than you have, right? And at the same time are in some way depending on you to be the one to finish it. But it connects you so you're not doing it alone. Second, it helps with gaps. And many of us are writing, right, about people who are gone, right? Sometimes we're writing about collective histories that were deliberately erased either in the family or in the society at large, right? And when we're looking at memoirs, when if you're looking for your ancestor, your people who came to another land, either they were forced to or chose to, but definitely under difficult circumstances, the vast majority of the time when documentation runs out, this tuning in with ancestral listening can open these spaces ethically, intentionally, and with deep care for you to explore in. And third, it opens up emotion. If you feel blocked or numb around the material or have trauma that puts you into, freeze mode or flight mode, this practice is a doorway and can slow down and support your nervous system. And there is something so magical about invoking our ancestors that breaks down really some of the armor, right? Some of the ways we guard ourselves that we build up around painful stories, right? And I'm thinking about some of my clients and all who've shared about this, and I'm just remembering one woman in particular. Like, I could never cry about my grandmother's story, but when I allowed myself to write as her, it like just, I wept and I wept and I wept. And that was connected to the most potent chapter in her book. So, a reminder in closing here, your story doesn't begin with you, it moves through you. And the practice and developing a regular practice of writing with your ancestors is at its heart a practice of honoring that truth. And if you want to try this, jump right in with the writing with the ancestors prompts I gave you today, and just keep going with it. Continue to develop your writer's altar and include your ancestors on it. You can shift around who you're working with. You can also tune in with your writing ancestors by putting their books on your, ancestral altar, asking them questions. Tune in to an author you love who is an ancestor in the ancestral realm now. Ask them about their writing practice, you know. This can be very creative. You can work with your ancestors in any way you like. I do highly recommend that you stick with your well ancestors. Don't call in the difficult dead for this kind of work. You may not even know what that means. There's a lot of layers of ancestral healing and recovery work, but here, working with your writing, working with your book, call in right from the beginning your ancestors, the well ancestors, the blessed and the beloved, those ancestors who have no agenda except to help and support you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to drop something in the comments. Thank you for doing this writing. This is in service to you, your ancestors, and the book you're writing, and that ripples out collectively to be in greater service to all. Thanks for your time.